Hey guys, welcome back. First off, this is a sponsored review. The nice folks at Formula J87 were kind enough to send me 2 pairs of these high wattage halogen headlight bulbs and 2 sets of these heavy duty 14 gauge headlight wiring harnesses. And at the end of the video I'm going to be giving away both sets of these bulbs and both sets of these wiring harnesses. So I recommend you skip to the last chapter called Giveaway Rules, and there you'll learn how to win them. Because I guarantee you it's about to get real boring real quick, and you don't need to watch any of this garbage. So first I'd like to go over some of the claimed specifications of these bulbs, and then I'd like to share what I learned when I did my current draw measurements and my heat tests in my 04 Crown Vic headlight assembly. So before I do that, I'd like to thank you guys for participating in this community poll. It really helps me put these videos together. So I asked this question. It says, winter driving conditions with ice and snow happens where I live. And in 17 hours we got 107 votes. And 63% of you guys said ice and snow happens every year. And 37% said never. So more on this later. So let me give you a shot of the bulb in the box real quick. This is the shot of the bulb, and of course this is the European part number 9107. Ours is 9007, and these are made in Germany. And in Europe, I found out, or I realized, they put the high beam and the low beam backwards. So these are actually 80 watt low beam and 100 watt high beam rated. So keep that in mind. There's the front of the box. Oh, and these are made in Germany. And let me give you a shot of the bulbs here. So this one on the left here is my factory OEM halogen. It's a 55, 65 watt, and this one here is the Flosser 8100. And you can see the bulb is physically just a little bit larger. And other than that, they're pretty much identical. So these high wattage bulbs are available in sizes 9003, 9004, 9005, 9006, H1, H3, H4, H7, H11. So pretty much any size you need. They make make a high wattage bulb in that size. And these bulbs are going for $22 a pair, and these heavy duty headlight wiring harnesses are going for $21 a pair. And I already did a full review on these headlight wiring harnesses, and I'll put a link to those down below. Okay, so as far as claimed specifications, these are made in Germany, and they have a low beam rating of 80 watts, and I actually measured them at 73 watts. They have a high beam rating of 100 watts, and I have an actual measured rating of 83 watts. And the color temperature is 3000 degrees Kelvin, warm yellowish, which is identical to the factory OEM 55, 65 watt bulb. So the color temperature is exactly the same as OEM. And these come with a 1-year warranty, and they claim to be 30% brighter than an OEM factory 55, 65 watt, which I've found to be true. So let me get into my current measurements. I measured the current with my handy dandy fluke meter here. And just to get a benchmark, I test the OEM factory bulb first. And I conduct these tests at 12.6 volts directly off my car battery, and then I hook up my my smart chart, my battery maintainer, to keep it regulated at 12.6 volts or above. And the OEM rating of 55, 65 watt, I found them to pull 4.4 amps on the low beam and 5.2 amps on the high beam. And after I plug that into my calculator, it comes out right on the nose, 55 watt, 65 watt. Now I tested these Flosser bulbs, and this is what I found. The low beam is 5.8 amps and the high beam is 6.6 amps. And I tested all 5 bulbs. I've got 5 bulbs here. I had them send me an extra one. And I'd like you to take note of these measurement readings for bulb 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And every single one is identical. 5.8 on the low beam, 6.6 on the high beam. And that tells me they're using high quality products, and they have a good quality control process where if they have any lemons, they can pull them off the assembly line and discard them. So so based on these amperage numbers, I'm able to calculate what their actual wattage is. And so the actual measured wattage is 73 watts out of the claimed 80 for the low beam, and an actual 83 watts out of the claimed 100. So it's a little bit down. They're only 91% of the claimed specification on low beam, and only 83% of the claimed specification on high beam. And I don't think that's a defect of the bulb. I just think that's the way they're designed. And I have a feeling if I tested other brands of these high wattage bulbs, it would come out identical. So based on these current draw measurements, I've found that the low beam are a 33% increase in wattage versus the factory OEM bulbs, and they're a 28% increase in wattage on the high beam versus the factory bulbs. And so the wattage and the amperage, what that translates to an output or lumen is about 30% brighter than OEM factory bulbs. And if you watched the first 4 clips of this video, the first 2 clips are a before and after, and the last 2 clips are a side-by-side comparison. And just look at the timestamps to see which one is which. And it's real interesting on the side-by-side video comparison that the high wattage bulb, it actually has a bigger beam pattern, and it really is brighter than the OEM bulb. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that the factory fuse ratings on my 04 Crown Vic on the driver's side low beam and the passenger side low beam is a 10 amp rating, and they designed that to work with this 4.4 amp low beam. So if you're going to run these high wattage bulbs, it's going to pull more current. So keep that in mind. You may pop a fuse and you may overload the wiring. And on the high beam circuit, it's a 25 amp fuse. Okay, now let's talk about my heat test. So I wanted to find out how hot these things get, so I pulled out my headlight assembly out of my 04 Crown Vic. And the first test I did was a 15-minute test with the OEM factory bulb. And I used my infrared pyrometer, and I took a measurement of the front side of the headlamp and the back side of the headlamp right about right here, which was the hottest part of the back side. So this is what I came up with the OEM factory 65 watt on the low beam. My test conditions were 63 degrees Fahrenheit ambient for my garage, and at the start of the test the headlight was 68 degrees. And after 15 minutes I took a measurement of the front of the headlight, and it rose to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and the back of the headlight was 230 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I repeated the test. I had to let this thing cool down for a few minutes, and I redid it with the flosser. And at the start of the test, the headlamp was 68, and I let it run for 15 minutes on the low beam, and check it out, it went to 190 degrees Fahrenheit on the front and 270 degrees on the rear. So right across the board, front and rear, it raised it 40 degrees Fahrenheit, both front and rear. And just for kicks, I wanted to see how hot this would get with my LED bulbs. And so I put in my most powerful LED bulb, which pulls 3 amps of current, and I let it cool down again to that 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and I let it run for 15 minutes, and the front of the headlight was 75 degrees. So look at that. It's half as cool as the OEM halogen, and the back is only 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's very interesting to find out, and I'm glad I did that to find out. So one thing I'd like to share with you guys in my research, that these people, the feedback that I read from people using high wattage halogen bulbs in their cars, is the mixed feedback is right down the middle. Half of them love them and they recommend them, and the other half of them don't like them because they damaged either their headlight assembly or their wiring because they got too hot or pulled too much current. And so that is why on our Panther cars, I really can't stress this enough, you really need to upgrade your wiring to a heavy-duty 14 gauge wiring harness. And let me show you what that looks like. So this right here is the factory wiring harness on my 04 Crown Vic. And this is my little test rig that is identical to these heavy-duty kits. Now, one thing I'd like you to look at or take notice of is that the OEM one, this connector socket is made of plastic, and this one is made of ceramic. So the people that say they melted their sockets, this is what they're talking about, because it gets too hot and this part melts and they have to replace this unit. And this is the high temperature ceramic socket, which can take the high temperatures. Now, another thing I want you to notice is the wiring on this factory headlight. Now you can see that the middle wire, this black wire, is the ground wire, and these two on the sides are the low beam and the high beam. And just by looking at it, that ground wire looks like it's 16 gauge wire, and these low beam and high beam are 18 gauge wire. And if you compare that to the size of this heavy duty kit, this is 14 gauge, so it's quite a substantial difference. And let me show you a better shot of it. So here you can really see the difference. These 3 wires are the 14 gauge heavy duty, and these 3 wires are the factory OEM. Now, the reason why this is so important is because these pull more current, like I talked about right here, 5.8 amps and 6.8 amps versus the OEM 4.4 and 5.2. So you really need to have thicker gauge wires to supply these bulbs with the proper current so they don't overheat the wires and overheat the socket. Okay, so now let's go back to this little pole right here. The reason why I did this pole is because in my research of these high wattage headlamps, I found that the majority of the people that use these and really like them are the people that live in snowy and ice conditions like Canada, the northern US states, and even Europe like Norway. And what they do, or the reason why they go to these high wattage headlamp bulbs is to melt the ice and snow that can form off on your headlights, on your headlamp assemblies. And so that can be quite an advantage over the factory headlights that may not get hot enough to melt the ice and snow. So for my application where I live, I really don't live where it snows, so these high wattage headlamp bulbs are probably not going to be my pick for my car. But again, depending on where you live and what your application is, if you're dealing with ice and snow, these might be a good option. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Now let's get into the giveaway rules. So I'm gonna giving away two giveaways, and it's going to include one pair of high wattage halogen bulbs with the headlight harness and another set. So we're going to have two winners for this giveaway. So here are the rules. Number one, you must leave a comment on this video, and number two, you must own a 1998 to 2011 Crown Vic, a 1998 to 05 Grand Marquis, a 2003 to 2004 Marauder, or a 1998 to 2002 Lincoln Town Car. And that's because those are the only Panther cars that fit these 9007 bulbs. And number three, you must email me 3 widescreen photos, no vertical photos of your car, and United States shipping address within 12 hours of the winner notification video. And number four, you must have a current Panther car related video on your channel, no older than 30 days in 1080p HD, widescreen, no vertical video, comments enabled. And if for some reason you have a privacy concern, send me an email to request an exemption, and you won't have to have that video. And last but not least, because my channel is not monetized, I make $0 making these terrible videos. I request that you guys pay the USPS 2-day priority shipping cost of $9.55 via PayPal. And the two winners will be chosen live on camera with a random comment picker 24 hours after this video is posted. And if for some reason somebody gets picked and they don't want it and they want to pass it on, it'll go to the next guy, or if they don't meet the requirements, it'll go to the next guy. So that's why I pick 9 alternate winners. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.